Hey guys, so we read chapter 1 yesterday of Shiloh. That's a new book that we're reading, and we read about a character named Marty Preston, who's a little boy. He's about 11 years old, and he went on a walk to go shoot his gun out in the hills, and he found a dog that he at first didn't think belonged to anybody, but then when he gets back to his house, his dad tells him that it belongs to this guy that lives in their town named Judd Travers. So when we read chapter 2 today, we're going to meet Judd Travers and we're going to learn a little bit more about him. So as we read today, I want you to think about the reasons that Marty gives about why he doesn't like Judd. So I want you to think about those reasons as we read. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start chapter 2. Chapter 2. Sunday night supper is whatever's left from noon. If nothing's left over, Ma takes cold cornmeal mush, fries up big slabs of it, and we eat it with Karo syrup. But this night there's still rabbit. I don't want any, but I know Shiloh does. I wonder how long I can keep pushing that piece of rabbit around my plate. Not very long, I discover. You gonna eat that meat, or are you just playing with it? Dad asks. If you want it, I'll take it for lunch tomorrow. Or if you don't want it, I'll take it for lunch tomorrow. I'll eat it, I say. Don't you be giving it to that dog, says Ma. I take a tiny bite. What's the doggy going to eat then? Asks Becky. She's 3, which is 4 years younger than Darlene. So if she's 4 years younger than Darlene, she's 3. That'd be 4, 5, 6, 7. So Darlene must be 7 years old. Nothing here, that's what, says Ma. Becky and Darlene look at Dad. Now I had them feeling sorry for the beagle too. Sometimes girl children get what they want easier than I do, but not this time. Dog's going right back across the river when we get through eating, says Dad. If that's Judd's new dog, he probably don't have sense enough yet to find his way home again. We'll put him in the Jeep and drive him over. Don't know what else I figured Dad to say. Do I really think he's going to tell me to wait till morning? And if the beagle's still here, we can keep him? I try all kinds of ways to figure out how I could get that rabbit meat off my plate and into my pocket, but Ma's watching every move I make. So I excused myself and I went outside and over to our chicken coop. It's off towards the back where Ma can't see. We keep 3 hens and I take one of the 2 eggs that was in a nest and carry it out behind the bushes. I whistle softly. Shiloh comes, lopping towards me. I crack the egg and empty it into my hands. Hold my hands down low and Shiloh eats the egg, licking my hands clean afterward, then curling his tongue down between my fingers to get every little bit. Good boy, Shiloh, I whisper, and I stroke him all over. I hear the back screen slam. Dad comes out on the stoop. Marty? Yeah. I go around, Shiloh at my heels. Let's take that dog home now. Dad goes over and opens the door of the Jeep. Shiloh puts his tail between his legs and just stands there, so I go around to the other side, get in, and whistle. Shiloh leaps up onto my lap, but he don't look too happy about it. For the first time, I have my arms around him. He feels warm, and when I stroke him, I can feel places on his body where he has ticks. Dog has ticks, I tell Dad. Judd'll take him off, Dad says. What if he don't? It's his concern, Marty, not ours. It's not your dog. You keep to your own business. I press myself against the back of the seat as we start down our bumpy dirt driveway towards the road. I want to be a vet someday, I tell my dad. He says. I want to be a traveling vet, the kind that has his office in a van and goes around to people's homes, don't make folks come to him. Read about it in a magazine at school. You know what you got to do to be a vet? Dad asks. Go to school, I know that. You got to have college training, like a doctor almost. It takes a lot of money to go to veterinary school. My dream sort of leaks out like water in a paper bag. So when we think about what he's saying there, what the author's writing, my dream sort of leaked out like water in a paper bag. I don't know if he's necessarily being literal there. I think that's more of an example of non-literal language, which you guys are working on this week. I could be a vet's helper, I suggest, my second choice. You maybe could, says Dad, and points the Jeep up the road and into the hills. Dusk is settling in now, still warm though, a warm July night. So that kind of tells us a little bit about the setting. Trees look dark against the red sky, lights coming on in a house here, another one there. I'm thinking how in any one of these houses there's probably somebody who would take better care of Shiloh than Judd Travers would. How come this dog has to be his? The reason I don't like Judd Travers is a whole lot of reasons. Remember, that's one thing that we were looking for. Not the least is that I was in the corner store once down in Friendly and saw Judd cheat Mr. Wallace at the cash register. Judd gives the man a 10 and gets him to talking. Then, when Mr. Wallace gives him change, says he gave him 20. I blink, like I can't believe Judd done that. And old Mr. Wallace is all confused, so I say, "No, I think he gave you a 10. Judd glares at me, whips out his wallet, and waves a $20 bill in front of my eye. "Whose picture's on this bill, boy?" he says. "I don't know." He gives me a look and says, "I thought so. That's Andrew Jackson," he says. "I had 2 of them in my wallet when I walked in here, and now I only got 1. This here man's got the other, and I want my change." Mr. Wallace, he's so flustered, he just digs in his money drawer and gives Judd change for a 20, and afterward, I thought, what did Andrew Jackson have to even do with it? Judd's so fast-talking he could get away with anything. Don't know anybody who likes him much, but around here, folks keep to their own business, like Dad says. In Tyler County, that's important. Way it's always been, anyhow. Another reason I don't like Judd Travers is he spits tobacco out of the corner of his mouth, and if he don't like you, and he sure don't like me, he sees just how close he can spit to where you're standing. Third reason I don't like him is because he was at the fairgrounds last year, same day as we were, and seemed like every place I was, he was in front of me, blocking my view, standing in front of me at the mud bog, sitting in front of me at the tractor pull, and rising right up out of his seat at the Jordan Globe of Death motorcycle act. So's eyes missed the best part. The fourth reason that I don't like him is because he kills deer out of season. He says he don't, but I seen him once just about dusk with a young buck strapped over the hood of his truck. He told me the buck run out in front of him on the road and he accidentally run over it, but I saw the bullet hole myself. If he got caught, he'd have to pay $200, more than he's got in the bank, I'll bet. We're in Shiloh now. Dad's crossing the bridge by the old abandoned gristmill, turning at the boarded-up school, and for the first time I can feel Shiloh's body begin to shake. He's trembling all over. I swallow, try to say something to my dad, and have to swallow again. "How do you go about reporting someone who don't take care of his dog right?" I ask finally. "Who you fixing to report, Marty?" "Judd." "If this dog's mistreated, he's only about 1 out of 50,000 animals that is," Dad says. "Folks even bring him up here in the hills and let him out. Figure they can live on rats and rabbits. Wouldn't be the first dog that wasn't treated right." "But this one come to me to help him," I insist. "Knew that's why he was following me. Got hooked on him, Dad, and I want him to know that he's treated right." For the first time, I can tell Dad's getting impatient with me. "Now you get that out of your mind right now. If it's Travers' dog, it's no mind of ours how he treats it." "What if it was a child?" I ask him, getting too smart for my own good. "If some kid was shaking like this dog is shaking, you wouldn't feel no pull for keeping an eye on him?" "Marty," Dad says, and now his voice is just plumb tired, "there's this dog, and he's not a child, and it's not our dog. I want you to quit going on about it, you hear?" I shut up then, let my hands run over Shiloh's body like maybe everywhere I touch I can protect him somehow. We're getting closer to the trailer where Judd lives with his other dogs, and already they're barking up a storm, hearing Dad's Jeep come up the road. Dad pulls over. "You want to let him out?" he says. I shake my head hard. "I'm not letting him out here until I know for sure that he belongs to Judd." I'm asking for a slap in the face, but Dad don't say anything, just gets out and goes up to the boards that Judd has laid out in place of a sidewalk. Judd's at his door of his trailer already in his undershirt peering out. "Looks like Ray Preston," he says through the screen. "How you doing, Judd?" Judd comes out on the little porch he's built at the side of his trailer, and they stand there and talk a while. "Up here in the hills, you hardly ever get down to business right off. First, you say your howdy-doos, and then you talk about anything else but what you come for. And finally, when the mosquitoes start to bite you, you say what's on your mind, but you always edge into it, not to offend." I can hear little bits and pieces floating out over the yard. They're talking about the rain, the truck, the tomatoes, the price of gasoline, and all the while Shiloh lays low in my lap, tail between his legs, shaking like a window, blind in a breeze. And then the awful words. "Say, Judd, my boy was up here walking the river this afternoon, and a beagle followed him home. Don't have any tags on his collar, but I'm remembering you got yourself another hunting dog, and I wondered if he might be yours. I'm thinking this is a bad mistake. Maybe it isn't Judd's at all, and he's such a liar he'd say it was, just to get himself still another animal to be mean to." Judd hardly lets him finish, starts off across the muddy yard in his boots. "You sure bet it is," he says. "Can't keep that coon dog home to save my soul. Every time I take him hunting, he runs off before I'm through. I've been out all day with the dogs, and they all came back but him." I can hear Judd's heavy footsteps coming around the side of the Jeep, and I can smell his chewing tobacco strong as coffee. "Yep," he says, thrusting his face in the open window. "That's him, all right." He opens the door. "Get on down here," he says, and before I can even give the dog one last pat, Shiloh leaps off my lap onto the ground and connects with Judd's right foot. Think about what happens there. The dog connects with his foot. That means he's kicking him. Shiloh yelps and runs off behind the trailer, tail tucked down, belly to the ground. All Judd's dogs, chained out back, bark like crazy. I jump out of the Jeep too. Please don't kick him like that, I say. Some dogs just like to run. He runs all over creation, Judd says. I could tell he's studying me in the dark, trying to figure out what's it to me. I'll keep an eye out for him, I say. Anytime I see him away from home, I'll bring him back, I promise. Just don't kick him. Judd only growls. He'd be a fine hunting dog, but he tries my patience. I'll leave him be tonight, but if he wanders off again, I'll whip the daylights out of him. Guarantee you that. I swallow and swallow, and all the way back home, I can't speak a word, trying to hold my tears back. So that's the end of chapter 2. So I want you to think about what happened with Marty's dad. Marty's dad ended up giving Shiloh back to Judd. Would you have done the same thing? I don't think I would have. But then it's hard to think about a situation like that when something doesn't belong to you. Maybe Marty feels like he should do the right thing, but sometimes the right thing can be kind of complicated. So one word that we read today was impatient. So impatient means that you kind of can't wait for something or somebody to do something. And so Marty's dad was getting impatient with him in the car because he kept insisting that he should be able to keep Shiloh, and Marty's dad doesn't want him to keep Shiloh. So obviously we have more chapters to read. So Shiloh seems like he's probably going to come back into the story at some point. So we'll meet back up again tomorrow and we'll read chapter 3. Have a good night.